So I, and my 3 siblings and 9 cousins, have a grandpa that is not really around. For most of us. Around 10 years ago he decided he only wanted to spend time with 2 specific grandkids, the children of his favorite daughter. He doesn't speak to the rest of us unless we are at an event, and even then he barely says anything. Last time we saw him was at a wrestling tournament. He went to watch my cousin, and left as soon as my brother's name was called for his match. So it feels pretty deliberate that he does not talk to us. For reference, I'm the oldest grandchild at 20, the rest are all between 5 to 17. Anyways, my brother had this idea that the next time we saw him at an event we should just act like we don't know him. He never remembers who we are anyways. I thought it would be funny. So last week was one of my cousin's birthdays, one of the cousins he likes, and he was there. He didn't interact with us for most of the party, but towards the end of it he came up to myself and my sister and said hello. I said, "Oh hey, you're ex-grandpa, right? It's so nice to meet you." He looked confused and said, "Well yes, but aren't you YS kids?" I responded with, "We are. Are you related to her or something? You look kind of like our grandpa, but he hasn't spoken to us in years." He was visibly pissed and called me disrespectful before stomping off. Most of the family thinks what I said was funny and not a huge deal, but his wife and the parents of my cousins, his faves, are super pissed at me. His wife told me this will ensure he never speaks to us again. I don't really care that he's mad at me, but was this really a big idiot thing to do? I thought it pretty tame as far as jokes go, but clearly people disagree with me. Not the idiot. Do we have the same grandpa? I cannot wait for his funeral. Frank. Gosh, I barely know him. Did you know he worked at company for 45 years and never mentioned he had 2 daughters? Shame. Other than his son and golden grandson, he has 3 other grandchildren, but we are his daughter's kids, so we don't exist. Not the idiot. It's pretty telling that the rest of the family thinks it funny. No doubt they all were thinking the same, but none of them had the ability or balls to do so. No love loss. You called him out on his bullcrap and surprised the only people who are upset are the ones he speaks to. Not the idiot. I mean, at least him not talking to you with a reason lets you vent some steam. Not like it's going to change anything from him not talking to you without a reason. Especially since this is obviously not an alienation estrangement situation caused by your parents. You're an adult, and if he wanted to have a relationship with you he could. 40. Have 2 kids. 18. 14. My youngest daughter really loves art and jewelry and has recently started to make some. My son enjoys woodwork, and my daughter asked him to make a little stand for her, where there would be a sign stood up by pillars and a little table for her art, because with that it would look nicer, and if she said that if she were to take this further it would be better to sell from that. He made it for her, painted it, and even got the letters that would spell out her business's name, which is just really her name's crafts, and she sold some at this little festival type thing we have. She made just under $400, and my son asked if he was going to get any. My daughter asked why he would get anything, and he said that he built the stand where she sold the things. She said she could have done it at a table. My son then asked why she didn't just use a fold-up table then. She said that it was because the stand looked much nicer. He then said that by that logic, it might have made her some money by attracting customers. She told him that was bad logic and that he wasn't entitled to any of the money, and that she didn't tell him she was going to give him anything. He said that he was doing stuff for her and she should have clarified he wasn't going to receive anything. I said that he wasn't really entitled to anything, and my husband, his stepfather, said he didn't have an opinion. But he bought the wood. My son used his tools and he transported in his pickup truck. My son said that he worked hard on the stand and deserved some of the money. He then said, "You know what, it's fine." My daughter then cut him off and said, "Oh, you screwed some wood together." Big whoop. My son seemed quite agitated by this comment and asked my husband, his stepfather, how much the wood cost him altogether. He said around $130 for everything. Why? He went up to his room and came down with $140. He has a job, and gave it to my husband. I asked him what he was doing, and he grabbed the stand from the garage, opened the garage door, got an axe and started hacking at the stand full force. It was breaking and I was yelling, and my daughter said that she would pay him. He turned around and said that he was about to tell her he didn't want the money, but he was just mad about the disrespect to him. He said it was his own fault for not clarifying payment and even apologized for making a scene of it, but what she said about it just being screwing would pissed him off. He kept going at it, while she was yelling sorry, and he then disposed of it. I was also yelling and vehemently took my daughter's side. My husband, however, said that he was paid back and that because he compensated him for the material he can really do whatever he wants with the stand. I told him he was being ridiculous and that what my son did was really mean and it upset our daughter quite a decent amount. I am, however, starting to think maybe my husband's right and what my son did wasn't really wrong. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot. He gave up his time to use his skills and help his sister, and you both disrespected him. Why shouldn't he get something for his time? To be honest, even if your daughter didn't give him money, she could have at least shown some appreciation instead of being petulant and rude. Sounds like you mollycoddle your daughter and she's acting like a spoiled, entitled brat, with you backing her up. You are the idiot. I agree with your son and husband. His work should have been recognized and your daughter's attitude and comments are disrespectful. You agreeing with your daughter is wrong. He paid for the wood and he can do whatever he wants with it. You should be teaching your children how to solve conflicts. Sounds like you like your daughter more than your son and he's tired of it. You are the idiot. You as a parent should have intervened to do what was fair before things got out of hand. If your daughter is going to be in business, she needs to understand that people who do things should be compensated. You should have instructed her to pay him something for his work, without him saying anything. Your son, at his sister's request, spent quite a bit of time making an attractive display stand for her. It sounds like she did well at the craft show. She then minimized the importance of his work. Listen to your husband next time. My dad is married to Emma. Emma's son is Kyle and I have known Kyle since I started kindergarten. Kyle became my bully in the 2nd grade. He thought my friends and I were weird and so he made it his mission to bully all of us. He called us names, tried to embarrass us in class, has tripped us up on a number of occasions. Then when my mom died he made fun of me for being upset and crying in class. His most cutting remark that my mom died because she couldn't take how much of a baby I was. My dad and Emma were always called into the school over the bullying. They met countless times and during one of those interactions they hit it off enough to start dating. My dad told me pretty much straight away and asked me to be okay with it. I wasn't. I asked how he could do that to me. He said he found someone to make him happy again and Kyle and I might get along better. I told him I didn't want to get along with Kyle better. I wanted to never see him again. My dad and Emma got married. At their wedding I made a stand to not pose for family photos. Kyle was laughing at me the whole time and made the jab, "Oh, is baby missing his mommy?" and then called me pathetic. It's been 4 years since they got married and my dad and Emma have really tried to push this narrative that Kyle and I are brothers. I still hate him. I have corrected every single person, including them, who calls us brothers. Kyle did eventually stop with the making fun of me and bullying, but the damage is done. For the most part he acts like I don't exist and grumbles to his mom when she tries to make us spend time together. Recently Emma arranged for some family photos since there are no photos of all of us together. She decided it would be better not to tell me or Kyle and hoped that we would just go along with it. I did not. I said Kyle is the last person I will ever consider my family and my life would have been much better without him ever being in it. Dad said to calm down, because it was sounding like I hated Kyle. And I told him I did. I told him I hated him as well for marrying the mother of my bully and how he had betrayed me. Emma did not like hearing that I hate Kyle and now she's I guess doubting their marriage because she has visions of us being friends in the future. My dad told me I am destroying his marriage by refusing to let go of the past and trying to move on. He said what Kyle did was awful but what I'm doing is far worse because I am old enough to know better and to work on forgiving since Kyle doesn't bully me anymore. I told him I don't care I destroy his marriage because it never should have happened in the first place. I told him I would never care about Kyle. I would never want him to be in my life and I would rather not see him anymore than have Kyle in my life. The conflict between us is still ongoing. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. You made clear your boundaries at every point. It sounds like your dad may have been motivated to ignore your wishes because he thought it was simple childhood stuff that you would grow out of. He clearly misinterpreted. I wonder why there weren't multiple efforts to curb Kyle's bullying, especially at the wedding. Your dad should look very seriously at the possibility that you will barely be in his life when you're an adult. That said, if he offers you individual or family counseling, I would take it. Also, why did Kyle stop bullying you? Did he grow out of it, or was it another reason? Not the idiot. Your dad and Emma met by them being called into the school to address Kyle bullying you, and they thought that could be the start of a beautiful friendship. Not the idiot. Your dad has done you a great disservice. You made your stance clear as a child and were dismissed and ignored, and have affirmed it ever since. Now you're finally old enough that they find it hard to ignore you, and they suddenly disagree with what you've been telling them for years. I'm sorry you've had to put up with all of that. And Kyle sounds like a crap. Not the idiot. Marrying the parent of your child's bully and effectively forcing your child to not only be around said bully but also be family with them, all while completely dismissing your child's clear feelings regarding this, that's freaking crappy parenting and terribly selfish. Why should you have to bear with it and make amends when your bully never actually apologized and instead continues to be a bully? Stand your ground on this matter. Backstory: I had met my son's biological father in 2011 while in the military. I was 21 at the time and he was 23. We dated for 3 years and talked about marriage. When I ended up pregnant, he decided he didn't want to stay and let a child cramp his style and stop him from partying. Before anyone says why I decided to get pregnant, my birth control failed. I was on the Mirena birth control and it stopped working, even though I had the 5-year birth control inserted. I was supposed to deploy, and that is when I found out. I went and told him the news and he reacted that way. He did not tell me that he was PSing out of Germany. I was in the Air Force and he was in the Army. I went to visit him at his base and his roommate told me that he had left and moved to Colorado. I was stunned and upset and went through a depression. A year later I was a single mother and met my now husband. He was really nice to me, and when I finally introduced him to my son, he instantly treated him like his own. He did not care that he wasn't his, it was his son, that's what he told me. We ended up getting married a couple months after dating and everything was going fine. My son's BF had contacted me when he found out from his sister that I was married and another man was saying, "Let's call my son Phil, his son." Everyone we met automatically thought my son was my husband and we didn't bother to explain. He met my son since he was 1 and has raised him since. My husband showed him to walk, talk, and potty trained him. My son's BF, let's call him Billy, started to harass me about wanting to be a part of our son's life when he was 4 years old. My husband said we should meet him halfway from where we were stationed in North Dakota to Colorado. He agreed. We drove to the McDonald's halfway and waited there for hours for him. I called him, texted him, and no reply. We decided to get a hotel room and try the next day, but that didn't happen. We tried this 5 more times and my husband said no more. My son's birthday is almost here and he is in my hometown and contacted me through email asking if he can be here and introduce himself to my son and tell him about himself being his dad. I wrote back saying no. His mom, sisters, aunts, uncles' friends have started sending me messages on Facebook, Instagram, email, text messages saying I am horrible for not letting him meet his son and keeping my son away from them. They haven't even tried before this, but I feel like maybe I should let them meet him. I don't know, am I the idiot? Not the idiot. One of the most damaging things for a kid to experience is a parent who blows in and out of their life on a whim. It can mess up their ability to bond and have healthy relationships for life. He's made it clear that he has no interest in being a reliable, predictable figure in your son's life. Don't let him get his foot in the door. He'll break your son's heart, and probably do it repeatedly. You'll catch even more hell from his family if you let him in and later have to lock him out to let your son recover from the hurt of being picked up and dropped at random. You can do that with toys just fine, but it breaks people. Hell no. You're not the idiot and you don't owe that sperm donor anything. One thing. I would make it a point to talk to your son about the situation and his dad being his true dad and not his birth dad. If his family is harassing you on social media, then I wouldn't put it past them to do something crazy. It's better for your son to hear everything from you than from someone with an agenda. I would also call the school and any extracurriculars you have your son in and inform them that only people that can pick him up are you and your husband, with no exceptions. I've seen too many situations where teachers and volunteers have been bullied into releasing a kid to someone they shouldn't. I know I already posted some stuff before in this thread, but this dude abandoned you at the most vulnerable point in your life and did the same to your child. How dare he and his family try to intrude when it's convenient and you've done all the heavy lifting. This also is a major slap in the face to your husband, who has loved this child like his own. Screw these people and their bullcrap. Block them all on social media and lock everything down. Have trusted people in your family manning the battle stations in case they decide to show up and cause drama. Lawyer up and push your adoption process further. These people are basically harassing you now.